Hello and welcome to the second in this series of videos, which is showing you how to import an Excel file into SPSS, set it up, do data cleaning, and then carry out some basic analysis. This is the file which I imported from Excel in the previous video. So we now need to think about what do we need to do to actually make this ready to go in SPSS. And part of that involves looking at the sort of variable we've got in each column. So as always in SPSS, one row refers to the data of one person or one case, and each column is a variable. The name of the variable has been inserted by SPSS using whatever text was at the top of the column in the Excel file, and it's just run all of that text together. So this one is I am satisfied with IT support, because that's what was written at the top of that column in the Excel file from which we imported. If we go to variable view, we can see the variable names here, and we can change these variable names at any time. So for instance, I've got a variable here called age years. If I wanted to, I can just change that to age in years, so it becomes a little more readable. And you cannot have spaces in SPSS variable names, but you can use underscore, and you can use capital letters. No special characters like exclamation marks. So that's the variable name, but we've also got for each variable a variable label, and the variable label is a description of the variable. So the variable name has to be something very short and brief, but the variable label can be just more descriptive text, and you can use spaces. So I could write as the label respondent's age years, which the label will show up on the analysis. So it's sometimes useful to have a more descriptive label. And for gender, we haven't got a label somehow; it just hasn't come across. So we can just use the variable name. It's simple enough; it's clear what it is. So we just write gender. But anyway, the key point is you've got a variable name which has to be fairly brief and no spaces, but you can also describe each variable in the variable label column, and in there you can more or less just write whatever you want to write. So looking at the variable types, we can see that SPSS has guessed when pulling across the data from Excel that most of these are numeric variables, and that's because if we look at the data, there's mainly numbers in the columns. So SPSS has read that information and sort of made a reasonable guess that that must be a numeric variable. And in general terms, a numeric variable means a scale variable, for example, like a Likert scale, or it could be what's called a continuous variable, which would be somebody's age in years. And so those are numeric variables. And in SPSS, the other main type of variable is string variables, which is a way of saying text variables. So for instance, if you had an other response on a question and it says other, please write in, and then you just write in whatever you think on that subject, that's going to be a string variable, a text variable. And these are noted as separate in SPSS because there's different things you can do with each type of variable. You can't do statistical tests with a string variable, for example. It doesn't make any sense. It needs to be numeric data. So SPSS always wants to know, is it a numeric variable or is it a string variable? And it's had a reasonable guess at which is which in the import process. But obviously we want to go through and check. So ID number, yes, obviously that was a number. And we know that all of these other questions were Likert scale questions. So, very satisfied through to very dissatisfied. So there's going to be a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in those variables, which we can see there. And for some of the variables, the original data in Excel was in a text form. It was a yes or no response, and this often happens for a variety of reasons. But we won't go into that right now. But let's say we had text in the Excel file. So when SPSS has imported the data, it's coded that as a string variable. Well, is it actually a text variable though? Not really. It's pre-coded. It's not just people writing in anything they want. They chose either yes or no. So really, this is a numeric variable. And if we want to do any mathematical or statistical test, we'll need to make it a numeric variable. So this is quite an important thing to do when moving from Excel to SPSS. You may need to recode a number of variables to get them into numeric form, basically. So let's say we want to recode this so that, for instance, 1 will be yes and 2 will be no, or the other way around, it doesn't matter, but we just need a number for each label. So to recode this variable so that we turn it into numeric data, we can go to transform, automatic recode, and then we'll go to this variable, which is previous experience in health or social care. I'll put it in there. And now it's saying new name. So that means when it's asking you, when I create this new variable, what do you want it to be called? So we can call it previous experience. And it will help if I use an underscore rather than dash, because you cannot use dash in a variable name, but you can use underscore. So it's going to create a new variable called previous experience, and it will add it to the data file. And it's going to start with lowest value, which in this case means which comes first alphabetically, yes or no. So that's going to be no. So no will be 1, and yes will be 2, I hope. So I'll press OK now, and it's running that recode, and we can see that it's recoded so that no is now represented by value 1, and yes is represented by value 2. Where are we going to find this new variable? Well, we need to go to variable view, and we'll see that it's added it at the bottom. So whenever a new variable is added, it appears at the bottom of the data set. If we go into data view, that will mean that it's the furthest over on the right. So now we've got a variable which is telling us not only yes or no, but whether they have previous experience, but that it's a value 2 for yes and a 1 for no. So that means we've now got a numeric variable for this question, previous experience. And if we look under type, we can see indeed it is numeric. And why that matters is because we can now do any kind of statistical test with this variable, whereas we can't do that with a string variable. So that's an important operation in SPSS. We can just have a look at, are there any others where we need to do that? Yes, gender, we would need to do the same process because it was written in as text in the Excel variable, but we need it to be numeric. So again, same process, go to transform, automatic recode, find the variable for gender. We need to give it a new name. We can call it gender underscore NUM to indicate here numeric. Add new name, do OK. And in the output, we can see that the new variable, the numeric form of this gender variable, female will be 1, male is 2. And we can see that that has been added on the far right in the data view, and that means it will also be at the bottom in the variable view. So those are some basic operations to do on the data, and I'll continue with this process in the next video.